Hi, welcome to another video. So this one isn't about electronics, it's about Nikon cameras, in particular my Nikon D3100. If you've got one of these, I'll give you a few tips. So the tips primarily about this Nikon camera, but I'll also tell you how to take fantastic photos, professional looking photos. Take you 5-10 minutes, mess about with your camera and go from there. So the first tip with this Nikon camera, this is a 3100. Turn the camera on. There's a software update. Go to menu, scroll all the way down to, on the spanner, scroll all the way down to firmware version, click OK. Now mine was previously 1.01 and they've released a different firmware. I think that's gone to 102 and one of these has changed, I believe, but it gives you a better idea of how many pictures and battery life. So if you fancy updating your firmware, take out the memory card, make sure it's blank, or just format it on the computer or format it on the camera. Get yourself one of these USB to SD card adapter, pop the card in there, plug it into your PC, go to Nikon download site, I'll show you in a minute, download the latest firmware on your computer, unzip it, there'll be a bin file, bin, copy the bin file to here, put it back into the camera. When it sees the bin file, it will give you the option to update. If the bin file's newer than the current version, it will say, do you want to update it? Well, another tip for this Nikon, if shooting movies and you want to know how to adjust the autofocus, press this button down here. I've already preset it, so autofocus full time mode, so click OK. Autofocus single servo, that's what it defaults to, so it will focus once and stay there. Go down to autofocus full time servo, go OK, come out of that mode, and hopefully you can see that's just focused on the PC screen. Hopefully you can hear that focusing, just moving it about. So I made the mistake thinking it wasn't autofocus, which is bizarre because it's autofocus lens, autofocus camera, but could never figure out how to get the menu for the autofocus for movies. So that's how you do it. So final tip for this camera, and a couple more to follow on photos, but final tip for this camera, if you're using Windows 10 and you used to use File Manager to access your photos, you'll probably be aware you can't see your photos with File Manager anymore. Open the View NX2 software you got with the camera. I'll show you on the screen, and you can import the pictures on Windows 10 that way. Right, so the last tip specifically for this Nikon, it applies to many digital SLR cameras. I always leave mine on auto. Takes fantastic pictures, can rain or shine. It's always on auto. There's a few guided instructions. Little tip. So this is manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, and then program. Put your camera on aperture priority. Don't be scared of it. Put it on aperture priority. So I've got the lens cover on at the moment, so it's saying too dark. So on aperture priority, this rotary knob then comes into play, and you see the aperture is, the f-stop is changing. I think it goes up to something silly like f32. Right, with this 18 to 55 zoom, it's actually variable aperture, so on 55 we've got 5.6. Right, on 18mm goes down to 3.5. Up to 55mm, the lowest is 5.6. You get better effects on 55mm or above. If you've got bigger zoom lenses, stick the bigger zoom lens on. So 5.6 as opposed to automatic. So if I turn this back, so you see on 55mm it goes up to f36. So that sort of figure, everything's going to be in focus. Turn the aperture right down, as low as you can go, depending on the day, get yourself a tripod, find something in the garden, take a photo of. And by adjusting the aperture, just the aperture, leaving everything else automatic, you can start to get some stunning photos. So first of all, if you've got the Nikon camera, go to the Nikon website, find the download page, and you see D3100 firmware, Windows and Mac. Scroll down to the bottom, or halfway through tells you the difference in the firmware, battery life and picture shots, number of picture shots. Scroll down to the bottom, tells you how to do it, accept the terms and conditions, and then download the file. It's an exe file but compressed or zipped, so unzip it and copy the bin file to the memory card. Put the memory card back in the camera as I showed earlier, and that's it. That's okay. Make sure you've got a charged battery on your Nikon camera. What I forgot to mention, if you've got Windows 10 and you can't find your photos, open the View NX2 and up the top here, click on Transfer, and when your camera is plugged in, see the source here, it will find the camera here, and then you click on Destination and where you want the pictures to go to. As you can see, by default, John's Pictures Nikon Transfer 2, and you'd find Nikon Transfer 2 under the pictures. Double click on that and you'll find all your pictures in there, and if you go to preferences you can delete them once you've disconnected or keep them and that sort of stuff. So Windows 10 Nikon cameras, specifically the 3200, Windows 10 you can't find them using your normal file manager. That's how you import the pictures on Windows 10. This is a bog standard average photo, nice sunny day, something in the background of my granddaughter, gorgeous little thing she is, and there's nothing remarkable about this picture. It was shot in fine mode on the Nikon and large picture format, so you can zoom in before a long way before you start getting pixels, pixelation. What I want to demonstrate is, so it's a regular shot and there's nothing remarkable, but it's all pretty flat. It's a nice picture, shot on auto, and there's 10,000 cameras in the world that would give you the same quality picture. So by setting your camera on aperture priority, zooming in and turning the aperture as low as it will go, which is actually opening the aperture, you can see that same picture with Amber moved away from the fence or bushes. She's now in focus and the bushes behind have got a soft focus. I think I went to the extreme, but as you increase the f-stop, that extreme becomes less significant or less obvious. Increase the number, things in the background will come into focus, but I just wanted to show you one extreme. It just makes for better pictures. So then finally, the same thing was done, zoomed into her, but in this picture I went to Adobe Photoshop and converted it to black and white, but selected her pink coat and kept that pink. So that's the final tip, how to get fantastic looking photos using Adobe Photoshop. Now Adobe Photoshop, if you haven't got it, sort of £60–70 to buy, and it's only a 1-year license. What I recommend, unless you want to spend £60–70 every year, find an older version on eBay, for example, sort of £30–40, Photoshop Elements 9, 10 or 11 or 12, the older versions. Get yourself a copy, make sure it's got the key code, install it, and then I'll show you how to create this picture. Right, so rather than opening Photoshop and importing this picture, I'm going to right click here, open with Adobe Photoshop Elements 9, an earlier version. Right, there we are, we've got the picture. So I need to put the mic down and press Ctrl A to zoom in. Right, there's the picture, let's zoom in, so Ctrl+. Zoom in to the part you want to keep. So I'll just give you a quick demo. So over here on the left, I can't see all the tools because this video capture is cutting some of the picture out. This quick selection tool on the left, click on that. start selecting her coat. So if you see here, it selected some of the coat, but selected some of her skin here as well. So up the top here, hopefully you can see this mouse moving. Change the size of the brush. You can change the brush diameter here. So let's make it, I don't know, 9. Start with that. Take away some of the selection, this negative here. So that's to add, and that's to take away. So let's take away some of this here. Obviously, the longer you spend on it, the better it's going to be. Right, you can see I've deselected her skin, but I'm not zoomed in enough to get all the coat. So Control plus. You've got to zoom in to do it properly, so let's go back to plus up here, so add. So now I'm zoomed in here, you can see I'm moving this line. I've made a mess up, so delete that part, so remove. What I'll do, I just want to give you a quick demonstration, and then you can obviously open your program and do the rest yourself. So back to plus. Now we want all this section. So I'm on a fine brush, on number 9 on the brush. So this is a simpler picture, but the previous one you saw with the pink hood over her face, that took me about 15 minutes to do. Right, so we have selected her pink coat. So if I zoom out, so Control minus, so that's the picture. Now we've selected her coat, but we want to invert the selection. So up here, top menu, select, and then inverse. So we are selecting everything but what we have selected here, everything but her coat. So then enhance, convert to black and white, and there you've got it. That's a preview. So you go, just click on OK. You can adjust the red, green and blue down the bottom. But I'm limited for space on this capture TV. So click OK. Go File. Save as. You must rename it, otherwise you're going to mess up the original photo. So I go YouTube 1. So YouTube 1, but I'll save it in my documents. Save. Right, shut this down. I'll click OK on that. So it's set to, I've adjusted this earlier. It's set to quality 12 maximum large file. So go OK. Shut the whole thing down. Shut that down. Now back into my documents. And there is YouTube 1. So that took, well, less than 2 minutes, didn't it? But obviously depending on your photo, so it's still high quality, still zoom in, you've got all the little hairs there. Put a pink coat, black and white picture. And depending on what you've taken a photo of, you can get some really impressive results. So that's a quick tip. Set your camera, take it a photo, mess about with the aperture. You're not going to do anything. Apart from maybe fill up your memory with a load of rubbish photos. But yeah, mess about with the focus. Move your object or person away from the background. And zoom in and mess about with the aperture. And you get some stunning effects. Mess about with Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Photoshop Elements 9 and above, sort of 30, £40. So get some stunning photos for a little amount of time and money. Hopefully this has given you some insight to taking better photos and creating some fantastic effects using Adobe Photoshop 2. Thank you very much for watching.